AskReddit by V for your attention. What screams I'm a bad parent? Using your kid as therapy and then getting upset when they have issues regulating their emotions. My mom, 100%. She told me some really heavy stuff about her childhood when I was 6. So I spent a good deal of my early adulthood figuring out how to process my own problems. Not believing in telling your children no. The world will and should tell them no at times. They need to be prepared for that reality, or they will be an absolute menace to everyone around them. I never understood the never say no to your children concept. Understanding and respecting the word no is the fundamental cornerstone of bodily autonomy, consent. One of the most important social concepts the child will have to learn. They need to understand both that they have the right to say no, a right they need to learn very early on, and that they have a responsibility to respect when others say no. Your adult children don't talk to you. Yeah, it took me a while to understand that me wanting to go no contact with my parents is a failure on their part. Not mine. Zero interest in the kid. Doesn't care what they do or what happens to them as long as they don't inconvenience them. Only caring for the child when they do what you want them to do. For example, if they play the sport you want them to play. Parents who can't apologize to a child. It's okay to have human emotions and moment to be triggered or struggling and lash out or be wrong, but for the love of all things good, apologize and change. My parents are allergic to apologizing when they fuck up. On the rare occasions they acknowledge they fucked up. Pisses me off to high hell. Your own children being afraid of you. No child should be afraid of the person that looks after them nearly 24/7. I really don't think it clicks till adolescence either, when you look back and realize that you really were terrified of your father 24/7 as a child. I was molested from age 3-6. Told my parents, but they did nothing. In my 20s, my mom had the audacity to tell me that I asked for it. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a mother anymore. 6-11 for me, by my maternal grandfather. When I told my mom about it years later, she said it wasn't that big a deal. Yes it was, Mom. Good old grandpa molested all 4 of his kids, and tried to carry on the family tradition. He finally stopped when I stood up to him. My mom sure didn't. I volunteer at have had student placements at a children's hospital, and we've had patients with serious brain injuries due to abuse, shaking, attempted drowning, etc. So yeah, I'd say those parents are pretty bad. When I was maybe 9, we lived in some apartments. One night I heard a baby crying and crying, but it sounded like it was outside. I looked out my window and saw a man holding a pillow over a baby's face trying to kill it. I freaked out and told my mom, and she called the cops. Years later I met a woman with a child who had very severe delays mentally and physically, and she is telling me the story of how she got away from her abusive ex-husband. In an odd series of coincidence, over 20 years later I reconnected with my neighbor from those apartments. That was the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. Edited. Thank you all so much for the outpouring of love for my mom. I told her Reddit has deemed her a hero. I am sure you guys made her day. Yelling at the kid for every trivial thing. I once got yelled at and falsely accused of doing something because I said no the wrong way. I said no, but apparently in order to say no properly you need to wait a couple seconds before replying because you don't have enough time to analyze the situation. Your kids never visiting once they move out or go to college. Oh, it's me. You've caught me. Both of my parents got separated this year, and both of them will be enjoying Christmas alone. They have truly reaped what they have sown. Saying things like "you're such a disappointment, I wish I had a daughter instead, you ruined my and your mother's sex life." This is stuff I heard for years. What the actual hell? That's just messed up. Ironically, never thinking you're a bad parent. I was assigned to arrange a free parenting with love and logic course a bit late in the evening for our school. I thought given the time the class was, lots of parents of some of the challenging kids who work, could make it to the class. Within a very short time, the class was full. I attended the class too and noticed the parents I saw were either teachers or parents of well-behaved kids. I felt so naive to think parents of naughty kids would even bother to show up. This still makes me sad to this day. You're the reason I'm stuck with your father. Sure mom, sure. My favorite response to that is, I didn't pick him, you did. Saying you're too young to be depressed and ignoring red flags from mental illnesses. This as well as punishing your kids for self-harming or being suicidal, instead of not getting them any kind of help. Never saying sorry to the kid when the parents make a mistake. My mom has extreme accountability issues. Nothing is ever her fault. I'm 43M, and after therapy this year I finally confronted her about the abuse I suffered as a kid, emotional from her, and physical from my dad. You know what she told me? That my behavior was the reason she and dad had marital problems, and if I had just tried to be a better kid, the whole family could have been happier. I'm very minimal contact with her for so many reasons. Blaming your own mistakes and regrets on your kids. And on the flip side, living vicariously through your children because of your own mistakes and regrets. IDK if this really screams it, but I absolutely hate when adults tell other adults their children's shameful secrets for no reason, even strangers. It tells me those children probably don't feel like they can trust their parents. This was my mom. She knows absolutely nothing about my personal life now as an adult. I don't tell her anything I wouldn't feel comfortable telling a stranger. Demeaning your children as means of punishment. The shame game. Brutal. Triangulation. After divorce, one of our parents immediately weaponized our relationship against the other. I'm 32 and still unweaving all of the details in my brain. Edit. It hurts my heart to know so many can relate. But it warms my heart to be reminded that I'm not alone. My mom did this big time with us. Behave or I'll send you to your father's was a threat as a kid. Never really knew my dad or why they got divorced. He's dead, so I know I'll never get the actual reasons or facts on it. Edit. To clarify, mom didn't kill him. They divorced, then he died years later. Making your child think they aren't good enough. My mom once told me you're a screw up and you'll always be a screw up. I still think about that every time life isn't going my way or I'm feeling bad. Treating your son as the man of the house because you're single. Goes right up there with treating your oldest daughter as the stand-in mom because you're single. Always believing they're right because they're the adult and therefore not letting the child have any say. If I had a dime for every time I heard this as a kid, I'd have had my therapy paid for well into my 40s. Treating your kid as your therapist. My mom found a love note to my dad from his mistress, which included a condom. That day, she picked me up from school, 9th grade, drove a few minutes down the road in an angry silence, then suddenly pulled over and thrust this letter in my face. She then proceeded to come into my room, crying, a number of times over the next couple of years to tell me about their problems and the divorce. Meanwhile, just after the divorce, my dad used me as his relationship therapist with his mistress turned girlfriend. At one point I snapped and yelled, I've never even been on a date. How would I know about any of this? Automatically dismissing and invalidating many of your child's opinions because you think since they're a child, they don't know anything. Yes, they're not always right, but they are still people and should be treated with respect. Adding to the respect factor, saying a child has to respect you first no matter what cause. Respect your elders. Like, what if the elder in question is being a straight up asshole? Using children as pawns in divorces or separations. My niece's father just called his 7-year-old daughter to tell her to make her mother apologize for blocking his number last night. He is upset she won't listen to him scream at her. Kids are opening presents and he's screaming vulgarities at his daughter. Dad of the year right there. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Telling your kid that you need them only for their money in the future. One day we will all live on the same plot of land so that you can still take care of me. I've got a life to live. Stop holding me back with your already health issues you cause yourself because you've been deadbeat for the past 20 years, Mom. Deleted. Or social media in general. Attacking the self-esteem in any way. Yeah, hearing your own mom call you a fat ass is a bit of a damper on the self-esteem. Deleted. Maybe I'm just jaded. However, I think a lot of people place their entire identity and purpose onto their children and need to keep those children helpless and clueless as not to lose that. All subconsciously, of course. When it's Christmas and you're glad you don't have to see them. When the best gift they can give you is their absence. When one of your mom's boyfriends touches you when you're a 14-year-old girl and you tell her, and she says don't flirt with my boyfriend. Years later you bring it up and she says I don't remember saying that. Of course they conveniently don't remember the things you point out that they did that have hurt you, and in your case literally hurt you. Honestly speaking, verbal manipulation and humiliation. I had great parents but my cousins did not. My aunt has an elder daughter and a son. She used to verbally abuse her elder daughter in front of everyone. She even used to hit her in front of everyone. Mind you, this was when she was 18. 10 years later we were reminiscing our childhood. The daughter is pretty successful with a startup, but she pretty openly said in front of everyone, even the aunt, that the trauma a child faces that young isn't healthy and that even if she loved her mom, she wishes her mom treated her better. My aunt just shrugged dismissively, remarking this generation is too soft. Ironically, the younger son is spoiled as fuck and hit my aunt back when he was 18 in retaliation of being accused of selling cocaine in his school, which he did. LMAO. Nevertheless, he was sent to Canada to study business and rarely talks with. Constantly deflecting parental responsibilities to other people, groups, or organizations. My stepsister to her 8-year-old daughter, it's not my job to help you with your homework, that's what teachers are for. Yep. I stayed down grade 5 because of this. A big pile of incomplete homework that snowballed and then they call me too immature to move up a grade. Nah, if was able to do my homework then I'd be going through to the next grade like everyone else. If possible, reach out to your niece and see if she needs a hand with it. Not that it is your responsibility though to do that. Crap situation. Not correcting your kids. It's okay, they're kids. Well, you kinda forgot the part where you're supposed to teach them. They don't just grow out of their bad behavior by themselves. Constantly insisting that your child is back talking when they are trying to explain you hurt them. Being addicted to meth. Jetsy. Using the I put food on your table argument when the child points out your disrespectful behavior. Also, I gave birth to you. Come back, I wish you never did. Remember, the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. If you see kids being neglected, or ignored, or not cared about at all, that's a good indication that their parent isn't good. Hugging your kid while only ever looking at other people's reaction and the kid doesn't quite look that comfortable with it. Hugging the kid in a manner which looks like theater performance basically rather than actual affection. Only ever claiming their kid is the best and brightest and only ever talking about their school studies and nothing else. Dismissing the kid's POV by default without even listening to anything the kid has to say. So we've all had that fake affectionate parent in front of strangers turning into the most vile person minutes after they're gone? That's a relief. When you beat your kids over the slightest of mistakes. calling them stupid and being a raging alcoholic. A bad parent is also someone who screams at you and blames you for their mistakes and tells you you're a mistake that you were born. A bad parent is someone who treats you like an investment. Those who molest their kids. Those who drown in drugs and alcohol and neglecting their children. Helicopter parents. I've had several friends and other acquaintances whose parents were incredibly strict and controlling, and those friends were the most emotionally unstable, reckless, and chaotic people I've ever known. Edit, and I don't want to give the impression that I think it's a cut and dry smother your children and they'll end up delinquents kind of situation. I just found that whenever I encountered young adults who were recently freed from their parents who controlled their every move growing up, most often they turned to some wacky shit that they never would have gotten away with as a kid. On that note, my parents were beyond slack when raising me, and I could have gotten away with a loot of stuff if I'd had any desire to rebel, but I really didn't. As Lisa said to Homer, your half-assed underparenting was way better than your half-assed overparenting. Pulling out a 12-gauge shotgun when I don't listen. I had a neighbor threaten me with a shotgun when I was a kid because I rode my bike past his house late at night, which caused his dogs to bark and disturbed his sleep. I did it again the next day because fuck him. Having too many kids or more than you can afford and raise yourself, so you make the older child or children take care of the little ones so they stop being children because they have to be like a second set of parents. It's not fair. Downplaying their mental health struggles and taking years to realize that your child is suicidal and desperately needs help. Adding to this, completely ignoring the doctors in the hospital begging to get yourself and the child evaluated because there's nothing wrong. My kid just did this cause she's mad at me. 6 different times. Leaving your kid home while the rest of your family goes to France for Christmas. I mean, if you do it once it's a mistake, hopefully it won't happen again. Telling your kid I wish you were never born when they're suicidal and saying they wish they were dead. Teaching my parents will kill me if I don't fix this soon enough instead of I wonder if my parents could help me with this. Edit, guess we all have this experience in our childhood, man, anxiety really sucks. Being a helicopter parent. Let your kids experience failure, let them make mistakes, let them get hurt, mildly. That is how they learn. Let them make their own choices. You don't have to let them choose which of 20 shirts they want to wear, but give them 2-3 appropriate options and let them choose. My philosophy is let kids get hurt, don't let them get injured. Using the saying, I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it. Recording your child while they're having a meltdown tantrum and posting it on social media, for likes, clout, assurance or whatnots, no idea what they're thinking. Instead of helping them to regulate their emotions and understand what causes the emotion, how to deal with it, and that there are appropriate ways to communicate your feelings. My parents did this to me once. They took me out in the yard and hosed me down until I was cold, shivering and crying. Then my dad got out the video camera and filmed me telling me he was gonna show everyone just how much of a bitch you are. The next day we had people over and my dad showed it to everyone by accident while playing home movies. This is the same group of families we still spend all the holidays with and I still struggle to be around them.